Attention, listeners! Waves of euphoria and surprise have taken over the Dutch Grand Prix. Max Verstappen secured his third consecutive pole position with an impressive performance. With a final time of 1 minute and 10.5 seconds, he beat Lando Norris and George Russell. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Incidents marked the day, with Logan Sargent and Charles Leclerc involved in accidents. The home crowd cheered for Verstappen's position. Norris and Russell finished second and third respectively, with Norris leading for McLaren and Russell for Mercedes, especially after Lewis Hamilton was unexpectedly eliminated in the second phase of qualifying. Williams' Alex Albon also had a strong qualifying session, finishing fourth. And rounding out the top six, we have Fernando Alonso with his Aston Martin and Carlos Sainz for Ferrari. Hamilton, on the other hand, had to settle for 13th place after his exit in the second stage, behind Lance Stroll's Aston Martin and Pierre Gasly's Alpine. Yuki Tsunoda finished in 14th place, with a possible incident involving Hamilton to be investigated. Nico Hülkenberg concluded in 15th. The qualifying session started with rain after a morning of bad weather. Norris set the pace early on, with McLaren standing out despite the changing weather. As the session progressed, the track began to dry, leading to changes in the order. Verstappen secured the top spot about 5 minutes before the end of the first stage, followed by Piastri, Norris, Russell, and Alonso. Hamilton found himself in a precarious position after a disappointing final lap on the drying track. Stroll, Gasly, Hamilton, Tsunoda, and Hülkenberg were eliminated in the second stage. The third stage started with a mix of dry and wet conditions. Sargent's accident caused a red flag and delayed the session. When the session resumed, Norris initially set the fastest time, but Verstappen made an impressive final lap and secured pole position. Norris finished second, followed by Russell, Albon, and Alonso. Verstappen expressed his satisfaction with the qualifying session, describing it as challenging due to the changing track conditions. He praised his team for managing the challenges well and enjoyed the final lap on slick tires. Now, the drivers are preparing for the Dutch Grand Prix, which takes place on Sunday. Let the race begin. Hello, everyone. This is Enzo, bringing you the hottest news from the world of racing. I'm joined by the always insightful William. We broadcast to you through F1 Motor Fever podcast every day at noon and 4 o'clock.
That's right, Enzo. We're always here, rain or shine, to bring you the latest news and curiosities in this incredible world of high speed.
I don't even need to say how much we appreciate it when you subscribe to our channel, activate notifications, leave that cool comment, and share with all your friends and family. You are the fuel that drives this channel.
I agree, Enzo. The participation of everyone is what makes this work so rewarding.
And for today, we have news that is simply unbelievable. It was a surprise even for us who are always tuned into everything that happens. This news is especially relevant because it shakes up the entire competition structure and promises to liven up the next race.
Oh, definitely, Enzo. I can't wait to dive into that discussion.
So, stay tuned. Pedal to the metal. Hold on tight. Here we go. Felipe, Vicente, cue the jingle. Returning to our discussion, Max Verstappen really gave us a show, securing 3 consecutive poles at the Dutch Grand Prix. It was a commanding display during Saturday's qualifying session at Zandvoort.
No doubt, Enzo. Verstappen really stood out, especially with that surprising final lap that put him ahead of Lando Norris and George Russell. It was a tense situation, with 2 red flags due to accidents involving Logan Sargent, Williams rookie, and Charles Leclerc, from Ferrari.
That's right, William. And the crowd at home went wild when Verstappen set a time of 1 minute 10.5 seconds, putting him half a second ahead of his closest rivals. Norris, from McLaren, and Russell, from Mercedes, led the charge that day, further enhancing Verstappen's achievement.
It's also important to note the performance of Alex Albon, who was another standout in qualifying, managing to put his Williams in 4th place, ahead of Fernando Alonso's Aston Martin and Carlos Sainz's Ferrari.
Definitely, William. And we have to mention Lewis Hamilton, who surprisingly was eliminated in the second phase of qualifying, having to settle for 13th place, behind Lance Stroll's Aston Martin and Pierre Gasly's Alpine.
Exactly, Enzo. Hamilton will certainly have a challenging race on the tight and twisty Zandvoort track. And it seems we will have an investigation into a possible impeding incident between Yuki Tsunoda and Hamilton after the session.
It's a situation to be properly analysed. Ultimately, what we can say is that it was an exciting qualifying session, full of twists and turns, with Verstappen shining. But now, with Hamilton in 13th, the race promises to be equally interesting. Stay tuned, listeners, we'll keep an eye on everything that happens. In the first hurdle of qualifying, both Alfa Romeo cars were lost. Zhu Guanyu, who had already spun in the third free practice session of the day, narrowly missed out on 16th place after a slide in the penultimate corner. His teammate, Bottas, was well behind in 19th place.
Yes, Enzo, and Esteban Ocon finished in a modest 17th place with the other Alpine car, failing to take advantage of the timing of his final lap. Meanwhile, Haas driver Kevin Magnussen, who had also suffered an accident in the final practice, overdid it in the first corner of his final attempt and finished in 18th.
And young New Zealander Liam Lawson made his qualifying debut in 20th and last place, a second behind the pack, due to the difficult task of replacing the injured Daniel Ricciardo with only 1 hour of practice in wet track conditions.
The qualifying session was really challenging, especially with the change from dry to wet weather. The Zandvoort track, which is already tight and twisty, became even more complicated with the wet track.
Exactly, William. But it seems that the challenging conditions didn't prevent McLaren from showing impressive pace. Norris set the fastest laps with 1 minute and 23 seconds, almost half a second ahead of his teammate Piastri.
Yes, Enzo. And despite the obstacles, our beloved Verstappen managed to stay in first place with 1 minute and 21 seconds in the last 5 minutes of the session. It was a day full of excitement, and we can't wait to see how these positions will affect the race.
It seems things really intensified during the qualifying session. With a warning of more rain on the way, the drivers had to make quick decisions.
Yes, Enzo. We saw some warnings being sent to the drivers, indicating that rain was coming. And in the midst of all this, we had some tense moments, with Hamilton being blocked by Stroll and Piastri having to veer onto the grass to avoid a collision with Sainz.
Certainly, and these incidents will be reviewed after qualifying. But despite the challenges, Albon had an inspired performance, leading the times with 1 minute and 20 seconds. Behind him, we saw Verstappen, Piastri, Norris, and Sainz.
And notably, Russell was the lead Mercedes driver in 6th place. And at the bottom of the table, Hamilton and Perez were surprisingly eliminated, while Leclerc and Sargent managed to make it through to the second phase of qualifying. It was an unexpected turn of events, especially for Hamilton.
Yes, and speaking of turnarounds, Alfa Romeo suffered a double exit already in the first round of qualifying, with Zhu finishing in 16th and Bottas in a disappointing 19th position. Truly a tough day for the team.
And the track seems to be drying up a bit. What do you think this could mean for the next stage, Enzo?
Well, William, this could mean a change in driving style and strategy. If the track dries up, the drivers will have to decide whether to stick with the same tyre or make a pit stop to change. It will be interesting to see how this affects the rest of qualifying. At the end of the second round of qualifying, we saw Albon shining once again, setting a time of 1 minute and 19 seconds. However, a final wave of fast laps saw Verstappen take the lead with an impressive time of 1 minute and 18 seconds.
And, Enzo, it was truly an excellent display by Albon, even though he finished in 3rd place. He was behind Piastri, with Alonso, Leclerc and Russell completing the top 6 positions. And Norris, Perez, Sainz, and Sargent, who reached Q3 for the first time in his F1 career.
Yes, William, and that meant a painful exit in Q2 for Hamilton, whose final lap on an increasingly dry track saw him drop to 13th place. A real surprise.
Exactly, Enzo, and with the stewards set to review the possible impeding incident involving Hamilton and Tsunoda after the session. And something that really caught attention was the gamble of Albon, Russell, Sainz, and Sargent at the start of Q3, choosing the soft tyres, but it didn't work out for Sargent.
True, William. Unfortunately, the Williams driver lost control of his car at the still damp entry of high-speed turn 2 and crashed into the barriers. After a delay for barrier repairs, all drivers except Sargent returned to the track on slick tyres, which generated a new set of green and purple sector times in the quest for pole position.
And, Enzo, with a much clearer dry line, Norris set a time of 1 minute and 12 seconds to take the lead. Verstappen, however, used the opportunity masterfully and set an incredible time of 1 minute and 10 seconds. Truly a day full of twists and emotions on the circuit.
And the big moment of Q3 came when Verstappen set an incredible time of 1 minute and 10 seconds, finishing over half a second ahead of the field. Norris secured a place on the front row, followed by Russell, the charging Albon, and Alonso.
And, Enzo, we can't forget about Sainz, Perez, and Piastri, who also had notable performances. Unfortunately, for Leclerc and Sargent, things didn't go as planned.
Indeed, William. But at the end of the day, it was Verstappen who stole the show, making it 3 poles in 3 races at home. A truly impressive performance. And as he himself said, it was a challenging qualifying with the slippery track and the new asphalt, but he managed to stay out of trouble and made the most of the final lap.
Yes, and now the drivers will prepare for the race on Sunday, the Dutch Grand Prix. It's definitely going to be an exciting event. And, of course, we'll be here on F1 Motor Fever podcast to bring you all the updates and analysis after the race.
For sure, William. And, just like the drivers, we also have to prepare for the race. So, let's wrap up our discussion here for today, but stay tuned for more race analysis and commentary here on F1 Motor Fever podcast. William, we have some interesting comments coming from our online community. Can you share some with us?
Of course, Enzo. We have a comment here from user Flying Kittikate, who made a joke saying, Zandvoort parking lot.
Haha, it seems like the number of bicycles really caught their attention. What else do we have, William?
Well, we have a series of funny comments about the location of the bicycles. User Legitimate Fan 1413 said, that one is mine, by the way. Razoreddit replied, and next to yours is mine. It seems there's a light-hearted discussion about ownership of the bicycles.
Shared bicycles seem to be a tradition in Amsterdam, don't they? What else are users talking about?
Exactly, Enzo. Mobius F117 made a funny comment, once a bicycle enters a certain radius of Amsterdam, it becomes everyone's bicycle. And Bender3600 joked, in Amsterdam, it's never your bicycle, it's just your turn.
Haha, it seems we have many comedians among our listeners. Any other interesting comments?
Yes, Beneficial Poetry 6457 gave some practical advice. Imagine forgetting where you parked. I would definitely have to take a picture of where my bicycle was. And Epic Poopy agreed, saying they usually do that, especially after a night out.
That's quite useful, considering all those bicycles. Any final comments, William?
Yes, Enzo. Jeremy66 made an important observation. Actually, it's considered a good choice to take the bicycle out at night. If you fall, you'll hurt yourself. If you crash with a car, you can kill people. I think that's a very sensible perspective to end our reading of comments today.
Certainly, William. It seems our listeners have a lot of common sense and a great sense of humor. Thank you for sharing these comments with us. Well, folks, that wraps up our episode today of F1 Motor Fever podcast. Thank you so much for joining us on our journey through the world of Formula One. Today, we discussed the latest race updates, delved into internet comments, and even had a laugh about Amsterdam's bicycles.
That's right, Enzo. And don't forget that we're here every day at noon and 4 o'clock, bringing you the latest news and in-depth analysis. So, if you don't want to miss any episodes, you know what to do, right? Subscribe to the channel, activate notifications, and don't forget to comment and share with your friends.
It really helps our work and allows us to continue bringing you this content. And, of course, a special thanks to our behind-the-scenes team, especially Felipe and Vicente, who make all this work happen.
Hey, Enzo Watts, you know what I'm eagerly looking forward to?
What, William?
Our next episode. There's always something new and exciting happening in the world of Formula One, and I can't wait to share it all with our listeners.
I'm looking forward to it too, William. So, that's it, folks. Pedal to the metal and eyes on the track, our channel always delivers. Until the next episode, and cue the jingle.